like that to be pointed out to me. So overall, I can see the value in this provision. It's a good bill.
The Honourable Rick Barker.
I just want to make a couple of points. Firstly, I want to follow up on the point that was made by Stuart Nash and then come back to the point made by Chris Hipkins. Stuart Nash points out that the clamping of vehicles is a very effective means of getting fines taken, and this piece of legislation strengthens that. Just want to bring to the House's attention that the analysis that was done on the amount of outstanding fines, the Ministry of Justice found that it was a significant group who owed significant amounts of outstanding fines, who had very expensive cars and the means to pay them, but they chose not to because there were no consequences. The moment there was a consequence, the fines were paid. And I've got a couple of classic examples from the Ministry of Justice. One was a very expensive new Mercedes-Benz got clamped in Auckland with a substantial amount of fines outstanding against it. The moment the wheel clamp went on, the chequebook came out and the fines were paid. Similarly, the Ministry of Justice found themselves in the possession temporarily of a very flash Italian car, a brand well known to many, with a prancing horse on it. It also got clamped, and I want to say to you, the chequebook moved faster than the car was capable of ever travelling. The fines were paid. Now, this person had the money, there's no doubt about it, but they ignored the fines because they felt they could do so with impunity. Well, the wheel clamp is out. The fine holders, those with outstanding fines, have got the message loud and clear. And I think it will work a treat. The point that Chris Hipkins made, I think, is a problem we have in the way in which we register and warrant our vehicles. And it is also an issue which I don't think this piece of legislation addresses as well as it could have. Fines should be, in some ways, to change behaviour rather than to penalise. And the difficulty we have by making our cars warrant of fitness contingent upon having a registration means that for a number of poor families it is very difficult to find the money for a lump sum payment for the registration. And because the car is unregistered, it cannot get a warrant. And this is a coupling of the two things. And I think there was a strong discussion within the Select Committee that we should give people the opportunity to clear the outstanding registration and a warrant of fitness, and for at least one occasion not suffer the penalty of a fine. Now, the Select Committee was not of a mind to do so, on the basis that the police and the local authorities told the Select Committee that they had a policy that if a registration or warrant was outstanding by a month and it was a first offence, they would give people the opportunity to rectify it and not incur the fine. There was only one local authority which had that advice clearly marked on its website. It was clearly understood that that was the policy of the councils, but it was hidden. The Select Committee was assured by the territorial authorities that the policy was active and it was alive and they would action it. Well, I want to put on the record for this Parliament, Mr Chairman, that the Select Committee will come back and look at this matter in the future. And I do think it's important where people have overlooked, as it's quite easy to do, the registration of the motor vehicle and the warrant of fitness, that for the first offence, repeat offenders, there is no excuse. But for a first offence, some leniency should be given. We were given an assurance by all of the parties that that leniency would be given. If it comes to my attention and the attention of the Select Committee that this is not the case, the policy is not being applied fairly and evenly, then I think it is time for the Parliament to act. And Parliament will be asked to change the law, because I do think it is a pretty tough thing. And I have had in my office on one occasion a young single solo parent mother who had virtually no money, had been in Napier with an unregistered, unwarranted car, got tickets for both, came back to Hastings and got a ticket for both yet again on the same day. A substantial amount of money, and there was no attempt by any of the authorities to waive either ticket. I felt that to be deeply offensive. 2 tickets, same offence, one day. And the poor woman had to then go to the court, asked to be able to make it on time payment, was told no. Was told by the local authorities no. By the police no. So she then had to let the debt go into the hands of the court, incur a $30 fine on each of them so that she could enter at a time to pay. This again is another problem that we have to resolve somehow, some way, because for a number of people the substantial fine is simply too much to pay off at the time, and we should give them the opportunity to pay. So there are two issues here unresolved. The first is the ability to waive the fine to change behaviour. I think that's a good principle, one that's supposed to be in policy and in practice, and if it's not, it will come back to legislation. And the second is to give people the opportunity to pay as they go according to their means. I don't think that is unfair or unreasonable. So that, Mr. Chairman, I'll conclude my remarks and say I support this legislation.
Cheeky Dean.